YouTube, this is the Guardian Dark Angel saying, sup? Anyways, I am here to make another interesting video. Controversial? Not really. Not if you're an intelligent individual and not ignorant of the world around you. So, I have just found a video of a woman under the username Christians Against Dinosaurs. Her video is labeled Dinosaur Hoax Fossils. Now, for those of you that don't know, I do not have good software, good hardware with my computer to show you clips and, bleep myself out. So you are getting everything unedited, unrehearsed, and stuff. I want to go over two claims that this woman has made during her video. Two specific ones, and then I'll branch out from there. One of which is that paleontologists are paid to forge fossils or forge together a bunch of rocks to look like bones of non-existent dead animals and get paid millions of dollars to do so. The other point that I'm going to touch on is, the fact that she says that bones or fossils aren't bones and contradicts herself by saying they're bones. But she probably doesn't really understand proper grammar, so we're going to, for the sake of argument, forgive her for that. And we're going to educate her. Or educate any of you who think that she's actually telling the truth. And I'm going to read to you a couple of cited pages that I have saved to OpenOffice, which is the poor people equivalent of Microsoft Word. And, read some of you the excerpts of what paleontologists make from two different sites. Now, Christians Against the Dinosaurs or whatever, and the two videos in the and all of the cited sources that I read off to you, I will post links to them in the description. If you have a rebuttal at all, go ahead and post it. I really don't care. But unless you can prove me wrong, I would strongly suggest to keep your trap shut. Otherwise, I'm not only not going to bother responding to you, I'm just going to think that you're stupid. Now, there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. I just want to point this out. Because ignorance is not knowing something. The lack of knowledge of something. Stupidity is just... There's so many different words and phrases. Stupid has no one real definition, honestly. Maybe in the dictionary, just not... You know what I mean. Arrogance is more a proper term, but stupid and arrogant aren't necessarily the same thing. These are monsters of the world for me, because I hate how they look on me, but I can't read small text, which all of it is mostly in small text, so I can actually, have it on the side of the screen, because, like I said, don't have great software, so I can't just edit articles into the video, which I would like to do, and my printer is running out of ink, and I don't have any more. I have to go get some later. So, to address the first point of how much paleontologists make, I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read two different sources from two different websites. And then you could tell me that, oh, well, this is circumstantial or blah, 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 blah. No, there's nothing in the world that's not circumstantial, so shove it. A ginger and glasses. Woo. Anyways, how much does a paleontologist make? According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the median annual earnings of paleontologists is $72,660 in the middle 50%. Oh, no, and the middle 50% earn between $51,860 and $100,650. The bottom 10% make less than $39,740, and the highest 10% make more than $135,950. Now, a lot of you might be saying, yeah, but that's, a lot is an annual wage. Yes, you are correct. For most people, that is higher than an annual wage for most people in, kind of not great jobs. But it's also not the millions of dollars this woman would claim them be. Next. Naturally, cannot speak. Naturally, as one advances through experience and knowledge, they will be assigned more difficult projects and can even be promoted to project, program manager, or or a senior research position, which will yield a higher salary. Now, that is the entire source for a website called mypursuit.com and careers for paleontology for people who want to pursue that as something that they want to do. Now, the next one is a little bit longer, so bear with me. Paleontologist salary. How much do paleontologists earn? Salary level for paleontologists can vary depending on factors such as their level of education, their level of experience, where they work, their specific job responsibilities, and many others. So basically, to this woman who's saying that paleontologists put together brachiosaurus skulls out of rocks, sediment, and limestone, and whatever else, one, good luck with that. Without a degree in sculpting or being extremely hardcore, versed in art or prop making or other things like that, you are not going to use any amount of spackle and smashed up whatever the heck you had in your video, which please watch her video first before you continue watching this, so you understand why I'm making this video. And you will, like, watch it all the way through. It's mind-numbing and it hurts to watch, but just, go with it. Now I will continue reading. According to the 2011 Alberta Wage and Salary Survey, Albertans in the geologist, geochemist, and geophysicist occupational group, which includes paleontology, earns on the average from $40.80 to $60.85 an hour, with a mean wage of $50.48 per hour. Which basically, if you don't know what the word mean is, it means average. It's the middle average area somewhere there. Paleontologist salary in Canada. They're going to do Canada and the United States. So pay close attention. This is two different locations that we're talking about, not just paleontology in general. It's good to cite your sources. Paleontology salary in Canada. According to the Service Canada, the average salary for workers in the prior fields mentioned, geologists, geochemists, and geophysicists occupational group, is $66,900 per year, which is not even really completely above average annual income for a regular paying job. Average in the United States, and it says the same thing because it's different locations that it was sorted from, which was, according to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median annual salary of workers in these occupational groups is $82,500 per year. The lowest 10% of this occupational group earned less than $43,820 per year. Short of millions. Seems so. Wow. Discredited once, no, twice on two different websites, and probably hundreds more that I didn't bother to look at because two is enough. Now, I'm going to scroll down to what is a fossil. Now, technically, she wasn't entirely wrong on one aspect, which was a part of what she was saying in general, but she kind of like pick and chose what she wanted to say to try to discredit something. But that's like saying that the sky is red because of this part of the dictionary's definition of this word and or phrase. I mean, it's ignorance at its finest or stupidity at its finest. I'll let you be the judge. Now, what is a fossil? I think that I messed up where I put all of this. Give me a second. Fossils are the remains or impressions of a prehistoric organism preserved in petrified form or as a mold or cast in rock. Now, for those of you that don't know, science has discovered lots of different things dealing with fossils. We have found plants, fossilized plants. we have found that has been pressed together in rock and, formed into fossils, or what we consider fossils. Now I'm going to go to a different definition rather than the standard dictionary definition, which you come up with when you type in "what is a fossil" in Google. Next one down, and I do apologize, I've got something in my eye and it hurts. A fossil is the naturally preserved remains or traces of animals or plants that have lived in the geological past. There are two main types of fossils: body and trace. Body fossils include the remains of organisms that were once living, and trace fossils are the signs that organisms were present, i.e. footprints, which it means example. Footprints, tracks, trails, and burrows. Now, this one's a kind of long paragraph, so it is a learning experience. Bear with it for a minute. Two different modes of preservation include preservation without alteration and preservation with alteration. So for those of you that don't know, especially this woman in this video, who I do really hope sees this video, just so she can understand that regardless of whether she was homeschooled or schooled by a extremist Christian household or whatever happened here, she can understand that once she hears all of this, she has been informed, therefore is no longer ignorant. At that point, refuting to believe something based on actual evidence is arrogance. There are also other words that implement that, but I'm just going to stick with it as it is now. Preservation without alteration and with alteration. Without alteration means if a bone, an animal, dies and it starts raining and the bone sinks into the mud, and after years of raining and whatnot, it's not dug out by another animal or something else like that, the bone itself will be preserved as a bone, not as something else, as a bone, without alteration. But let me read from this so you get the idea. Examples of modes of preservation without alteration include freezing, mummification, and unaltered shell remains. Examples of modes of preservation without alteration: premineralization, which is the result of chemical precipitating into the pore space; replacement, which occurs when there is actual molecular exchange of substances that were once a part of the organism with minerals carried by percolating water solutions; and carbonizing, which occurs when soft tissues are preserved as films of carbon. Casts and molds are another type of fossilization, where the physical characteristics of an organism are impressed into the sediment prior to the formation of rock. Molds are produced when shell material is progressively removed by leaching, so as to leave, wow, that's worded interestingly, leaching so as to leave a void in the rock bearing the surficial features of the original shell. Casts are produced when the void between the internal and external mold is filled with mineral matter. So let me put this in layman's terms. Okay, so on to what she actually said. She wasn't entirely wrong, okay? If a bone or organism or something gets trapped inside of rock, or any type of rock or earth or whatever, basically that particular organism may or may not decompose. Depending on if it decomposes, parts of it that do decompose, like flesh, etc., which flesh will decompose over time, so even if it's of bugs, stuff will leak into that rock formation, where that gap is in between this rock, which is the casting that it's talking about. It's like a regular cast when you're making cannonballs, or, you know, whenever you're making anything made out of metal or steel, you have to cast it. And basically what will happen is things will get poured into this, and it will be mostly preserved with the alterations of other elements that have fallen into this gap, which is the void that it's talking about. The last one is the longest paragraph, and it's actually a response to people who think that fossils don't contain DNA. Now, if you don't think fossils actually contain DNA, you probably need a degree in science or to do enough research on the internet to know that most fossils can contain DNA, as long as they're like bones, bone marrow. Bone marrow has DNA in it. Anything that is left behind in fossils that is left of the organism can contain DNA depending on the decomposition of the DNA itself. I will read this. Ancient DNA is DNA isolated from ancient specimens. It can also be loosely described as any DNA recovered from biological samples that have not been preserved specifically for later DNA analysis. Examples include the analysis of DNA recovered from archaeological and historical skeletal material, mummified tissue, archival collections of non-frozen medical specimens, preserved plant remains, which means that if something manages to be preserved in any way, shape, or form, as is, regardless of whether it's preserved in a way that it's fossilized or, well, normally fossils aren't completely preserved, but there are cases where things are almost completely preserved as they were, you can get DNA from that. Let's see where I go back to where I was. Preserved plant remains. Ice and permafrost cores, Holocene plankton in marine and lake sediment, and so on. Unlike modern genetic analysis, ancient DNA studies are characterized by low-quality DNA, which means that the DNA is still there. So for her to say that fossils aren't bones, this disproves it. Because if you can get any sort of DNA from it, rocks do not have DNA. Yes, they are a combination of elements, but elements don't necessarily have DNA. DNA is the characterization of what makes up living organisms that pass down their genetics from one generation to another, or multiply, or whatever. Unlike modern genetic analysis, which I will read the sentence, ancient DNA studies are characterized by low-quality DNA. This places limits on what analysis can achieve. Furthermore, due to the degradation of the DNA molecules, which are a process which correlates loosely with factors such as time, temperature, and presence of free water, upper limits exist beyond which no DNA is deemed likely to survive. The rest of this is like ridiculously complicated science stuff. Actually, it's not ridiculously complicated, it's simple, but for the sake of being direct, all of the above was important. Everything below it's not necessarily important. So, all of this is basically saying that your video that you made about how Christians Against Dinosaurs, or whatever else, are fake. Ignorance really is bliss, isn't it? I will use one example I don't have a cited source for, but I know for a fact. If you look up any actual animals that are thought to be mythical, or extinct, or whatnot, and actual animals that existed back in time outside of dinosaurs, dinosaurs actually can be proven to have existed. Now, our understanding of their behavior and what they actually did is almost impossible to analyze, except for by their bone structures, their body structures, but we know that they grew to massive sizes because of the abundance of room to expand. Now the theory goes that the more space, uninterrupted space, mind you, something has to grow, that it will constantly be evolving. Now, this video is not to combat Christians, it is to combat ignorance. And every bit of evidence I gave you was presented, I presented to you, again will be sourced below, is to basically say you are no longer ignorant. Now whether you choose to accept the information that has been given to you, that will make up whether I define you as arrogant or stupid. Not that I will see a response from you on this, but you get the general idea. Now, let's take direwolves. Direwolves were thought to be mythical animals. Actually, they are not mythical. At one point in time, they were thought, we believe that they exist, and we've actually found skeletal remains of what could be direwolves. And the fact that they were as large as they were, which I think in movies and TV they were what is the word or phrase I'm looking for? They were over-exaggerated a little bit. We do know that they were bigger, faster, and stronger than modern-day wolves. And most of the time they did not necessarily, we don't necessarily think that they roamed in packs per se. But if you read any material on evolution at all, not necessarily how humans have evolved as a species, because obviously you're Christian and you don't care. But if you read anything on evolution in animals, which evolution in animals actually exists, we can prove this over time. Have proved this over time. This basically means that the more space that you have, the more abundant food sources that you have, the more space you have to grow, feed, and other things, the more likely it is that you will become bigger. You know, we had the oxygen levels were probably much more rich, you know, back before people. So many things that I can propose in this video that would make this video hours long, but I'm not going to do it because, you know, I don't want to make all of my videos a 30-minute ordeal about how people are stupid. Although that might end up being what the series turns out about, because Views on Views, which is the series that I'm working on, is something that I'm aiming to show, or, you know, give a light at the end of the tunnel for people who are ignorant, or give my views on people who have ignorant or arrogant views, because views on views. It's like Peter Griffin's What Grinds My Gears from Family Guy, but rather than What Grinds My Gears, it's my views on other people's views. Because some views can be factual, whereas other views can be not factual. Like if I were to believe that these glasses right here, these monstrosities that make me look like some college professor type individual, if I had like a shirt and a tie or something else, or maybe like some really geeky nerd like, yes. But if I believe to myself, or I view these glasses as magic, so that whenever I put them on, I become invisible. Yes, this is a scene from Big Daddy, whenever he gave him the sunglasses that made him invisible. And I put these on, I can see myself through the camera lens, because I'm recording via YouTube. If I was recording via anything else, I would also know that I'm not invisible. I could give myself multiple reasons why I could see myself, and how other people pretend that they can see me, or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, just because somebody has a view about something doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. All of the evidence pointed here says that your views are wrong. What you have been taught, or what you believe, is wrong. All of this evidence is about irrefutable. Until you go into the study of genetics, and you can go get samples, you know, highly degraded samples, but samples of animal bones, just to figure out, you know, a little bit about their DNA, but obviously not that much because it did say that, you know, they would be degraded samples. But they're still there, which means they're not just rocks. And most of it is not rock. Most of it is bone, especially for the larger animals that died in one place, and if it rained heavily, got buried under dirt, mud, whatever, and yeah, that's how fossilization happens. Whether it be plants, animals, Neanderthals, cavemen, whatever anybody wants to call them, but cavemen and Neanderthals existed. That we have proof of too. You gonna do a channel called Christians Against Neanderthals too? Now that's just me being petty and sarcastic, but honestly, all of this evidence is as is. If you choose to believe it, you choose to believe it. It's your own choice. But you're choosing to live arrogantly by thinking that you are right when everything, literally everything, says that you're wrong. Now, grant you, a lot of you might be like, well, the Bible doesn't say I'm wrong. Have you read the Bible all the way through, and anywhere in there did it say that make a YouTube video and have views that dinosaurs never existed? No, it never said dinosaurs didn't exist unless some extremist made a rendition of the Bible that said it. Because I venture to say that in the next 100 years or so, or maybe longer than that, there will be a rendition of the Bible that is a add-on to the New Testament where it says things about the 60s and the 70s and, you know, so on and so forth. And new additions are constantly ending up being made to the Bible by a pope or by a newly appointed saint that talks about what you can and can't do outside of what the Old and New Testament says. It'll probably happen. We might not be around to see it, but guarantee the fact that it'll happen. Anyways, almost 30 minutes, but all the evidence is here. You are free to go to any of these websites, and rather than picking or choosing, actually read through all of it and look at it. It's a learning experience. Life is a learning experience. If you take the information that you read and you still choose to think that what you say is right, you're free to make that choice. But know that you will never have an intelligent conversation about history with people who actually love history. Just understand that. Go into situations knowing this. Go into situations knowing that people might think that you're stupid or kidding or something. I don't know, but people are extremely judgmental. This is me basing things on facts. I'm not being judgmental towards you. I'm giving you information to let you make your own decision as to what you're going to choose to believe, or giving you an option to believe something that is correct. If you choose not to, it's your own decision. I'm not going to bash you for it, but there are words in the dictionary that fit pretty close to your name that are not rude words, they're just factual words. They're based on a state of mind. Anyways, enough of the goofy faces. This is the Guardian Dark Angel, and you have been schooled. Come at me, bro. Guardian Dark Angel, YouTube, deuces.